All right, let's dive right into this explainer and honestly, let's decode a really frustrating mystery today. You know the exact feeling, right? You spent hours and hours drilling, your footwork is crisp, your clears are deep, you're literally feeling like an Olympic champion. But the very second the umpire calls the score, it's like you've suddenly forgotten which end of the racket to even hold. Well, today, we are going to fix exactly that. So here's what we're looking at today. We're going to walk through 5 psychologically proven fixes for peak performance. We'll identify your real opponent, tame that inner critic, focus on the process, learn how to become a 2%er, trust your training, and finally, play with real purpose. Let's get into it. Starting off with section 1, the real opponent is you. Okay, so picture this. Your smashes are razor sharp in the warm-ups, but when the actual game starts, poof, they completely disappear into thin air. You totally tighten up, your shoulders get stiff, and honestly, you start kind of praying the shuttle doesn't come your way. And you're just standing there on the court asking yourself, what is wrong with me right now? Well, the truth is, your biggest hurdle out there, it isn't a lack of physical skill. It's actually a massive psychological block. Basically, you're just getting in your own way. Just think about Timothy Galloway's legendary equation from the inner game. Performance equals potential minus interference. Look, you already have the potential from practice, right? You've logged the hours, you absolutely know the mechanics. So to elevate your actual performance on game day, we simply have to reduce that mental interference. The self-doubt, the fear of losing, that nonstop mental chatter, yeah, that's the exact interference we're going to eliminate. Moving right along to section 2 and our first fix, tame the critic. So to actually reduce that mental interference, we have to look at this totally fascinating split happening right inside our brains while we play. It's kind of like you have 2 completely different versions of yourself trying to steer the exact same ship at the same time. On one side, we have self 1. This is that loud, barking voice of the critic. It's highly analytical, it's super judgmental, and honestly, it creates massive physical tension. But then on the other side, we have self 2. This is your natural, instinctive muscle memory. We call it the doer. Now, self 2 doesn't use words at all. It just intuitively knows how to play the game based on all your training. The whole problem arises when self 1 doesn't trust self 2 and starts trying to micromanage your movements with a bunch of verbal commands. I mean, think about it. If you try to process a multi-step verbal lecture from your inner critic, keep your elbow high, step with the right foot, snap the wrist, while a shuttle is literally flying at you at 200 miles per hour, your body is just going to freeze up. By the time you process the words, the rally is completely over. As the Badminton Center brilliantly puts it, your greatest opponent wears your face. Defeating that inner critic is your true victory out there. Which brings us to section 3, fix 2, focus on process. You see, when you're outcome-oriented, you are completely fixated on the score. You fear losing, you end up playing it way too safe, and you generate massive, massive anxiety. You're basically living in the future. But when you shift to a process-oriented focus, meaning you're thinking only about your footwork, your breathing, and taking calculated risks, your body can naturally course-correct without all that extra emotional drama. You're simply observing the present reality, taking in the data, and adapting on the fly. Now, the ancient samurai actually called this state mushin, which basically translates to the mind without mind. Just imagine a totally still pond of water. If you throw a stone in, sure, it ripples, but then it immediately returns to calmness. And that is exactly how you have to approach a badminton match. You meet each rally fully, you completely let go of the last miss shit, and you allow your body to simply respond to the physics of the game without casting any judgment on yourself. All right, section 4, fix 3, the 2%er. Here is the ultimate reality of the game. Life, and especially badminton, is fundamentally 10% what actually happens to you, and a staggering 90% how you react to it. So, when your opponent makes a terrible line call, or you completely dump an incredibly easy net kill straight into the cape, well, that's just the 10%. Your emotional reaction to that specific event is what will completely dictate the other 90% of your match. Because you really have a choice out there. You can be what sports psychologists call a mood hoover. Someone who just sucks the energy right out of the room, complains constantly, and somehow finds a problem for every single solution. Or you can be a 2%er. A 2%er builds this incredibly resilient can-do attitude. They take personal responsibility. They actually view those pregame butterflies as helpful energy, and they instantly pivot their focus to finding a solution for the very next point. I love this quote by Henry Ford because it perfectly captures that sort of bounce back ability that every successful athlete absolutely needs. A two percenter views errors not as permanent failures or, reflections of their self-worth, but just as vital, objective feedback. You missed the line by 2 inches? Great. Now your body has the exact data it needs to adjust the tension on the very next swing. Moving on to Section 5, Fix 4. Trust your training. Now we've got to bridge that gap between practice and actual gameplay by simply trusting the hard work you have already put in. Remember, the match is not the time to learn, it's the time to execute. And just like your physical footwork, your mind needs reps too. Doing these mental exercises off the court literally programs your muscle memory without uttering a single mechanical word. Visualizing the perfect drop shot in your mind allows yourself to, remember, the doer, to imitate what you've envisioned. Journaling your thoughts tracks your mental patterns, and practicing mindfulness keeps you totally centered under pressure. So how do we practically silence that inner critic during a high-stakes match? Well, you can employ this highly actionable 4-step pre-serve routine. First, take one slow breath to regulate your nervous system. Second, consciously relax your grip because stiffness absolutely kills speed. Third, pick one external anchor. Literally stare intensely at the feathers of the shuttle or the cork. By anchoring your brain so deeply in this tiny physical detail, it literally leaves zero mental bandwidth for anxiety to creep in. And finally, fourth, just trust your training. Let your body take over. This brings us to Section 6 and our final fix. Play with purpose. You really have to ask yourself, why do you actually step onto the court in the first place? Is it for your health? The community connection? When you start treating the badminton court as a dojo for self-mastery, basically a place to conquer your own inner chaos, rather than just a place to seek external validation, your motivation becomes absolutely unbreakable. You completely stop being a victim to the scoreboard because your purpose is suddenly so much greater than a single point. Think about it. Anxiety really only exists when we obsess over the future. We worry so much about what others will think if we lose. So you've got to strip away the pressure of the scoreboard. As Coach Pete Carroll famously said, there are no big moments, just another game. The court dimensions haven't changed. The physics of the shuttle haven't changed one bit. Just trust your body to play the game you already know how to play perfectly well. So as you pack up your gear and head out to your next match, I really want you to remember that the true victory is mastering yourself. That opponent across the net, they're really just there to give you the obstacles you need to grow. So I'll leave you with this. What psychological shift are you going to bring to the court today? Which of these mental traps are you going to conquer first? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Now get out there, quiet the mind, and let your body do what it does best.